Next, if you're going to fly your drone outdoors, there's a couple different things you'll want to consider. So you want to consider things such as power lines and trees. Same thing as when you're doing a site assessment inside, you want to just look up, see what kinds of things are going to be in the way. Power lines, trees, cranes, flag poles, all that kind of stuff can get in your way. The next thing you're going to want to do, so when you're flying your drone inside, and if you're in the United States, the FAA does not have authority over the airspace inside a building. So you do not need FAA approval or authorization to fly a drone inside a building. You need authorizations and approvals from other people, but not the FAA. When you move outdoors, the FAA does regulate the airspace outdoors, and that includes the airs 10 feet above the ground, 5 feet above your house, you know, just right outside your garage door. The FAA controls all that airspace. They have the authority over that airspace. So what you can do is there's a couple different apps and a website that I want to share with you today. And the links to these are on that, that website that I initially told you about. So the first app is called Before You Fly. And this app is an app that was designed to create this app to make it easy for remote pilots to look at airspace of where they are and make a determination if there's any sort of rules or regulations that they need to consider with where they want to fly. It's not a full-blown, you know, like aeronautical chart or anything like that. It's a very simplified version of the airspace to help remote pilots understand what the airspace looks like where they're trying to fly. What it does not do is it does not give you airspace authorization, or what is called a LANCE authorization, to fly your drone. So say you are in controlled airspace. You determine that you are in controlled airspace and you need to have an FAA authorization to fly your drone. You can use the Kitty Hawk app. So Kitty Hawk also developed this, but it's called the Kitty Hawk app. And the Kitty Hawk app will allow you to file a LANCE request, so you can get an authorization to fly your drone. One thing that's very important to understand is that airspace consists of controlled and uncontrolled airspace. And you're not going to necessarily know just by looking around your community and seeing, okay, well, this airport has a control tower, so I'm guessing I'm in controlled airspace. You're not going to know that. There's a lot of airports in this country that don't have a control tower, but they are still in controlled airspace. So you don't want to use that as sort of your gauge to figure out if you're in controlled or uncontrolled airspace. You want to use one of these two apps to figure that out. The Kitty Hawk app then will allow you to request a LANCE authorization. However, the FAA is slowly rolling this out to all the different airports and all the different controlled airspace areas in the country. And so there are certain airspace that they don't qualify yet for LANCE authorization. So when you're looking at it, you'll see like a ring where the airspace is, but then there'll be a grid and it's sort of like grayed out because LANCE authorizations aren't available just yet. So when you find that, what you have to do is you have to file an airspace authorization request at FAA Drone Zone. And so that website is also linked on the post I originally mentioned. So you also want to consider that your drone needs to be registered outdoors. Any drone over 250 grams and under 55 pounds needs to be registered as an unmanned aerial system. There are drones that, if they are under 250 grams and you're using them under Part 107, they do need to be registered. Once you've determined, you know, what the FAA has to say about your drone flight, then you also want to consider any sort of local ordinances that you may have in your city, your HOA, your county, or even your state. So there are some states that are now, in the United States anyways, that are requiring an additional certification above and beyond the remote pilot certification. And there are also some places that are saying you can't fly your drone here, you can't fly your drone there, that kind of thing. This is sort of an area right now that is new to a lot of people as drones are becoming more and more affordable. and more people are flying them, more and more people are getting involved, and they're trying to put in some regulations around airspace, but they don't control it. They don't have authority over airspace. The FAA has authority over airspace. So what a lot of local governments are doing, so state, county, and city governments, what they're doing is they're saying, okay, well, we can't control the airspace, but what we can do is we can say you cannot launch your drone from here, or you cannot land your drone here. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're paying attention to any sort of local ordinances that might be in effect of where you are trying to fly your drone. And then if you are running a youth group, but you've got an activity that you want to do, make sure you have a backup indoor location for inclement weather. It's when you're flying outdoors, oftentimes it's a good idea to have a backup indoor location. But sometimes that can be difficult with scheduling, especially if you want to use the gymnasium, but also another teacher wants to use the gymnasium. That can be very difficult. So again, I always just go back to always have a plan B when you're teaching anything with technology. Always have that plan B.